Great to have you with us on SABC News. South Africa's inequality rate has not prevented the country from making progress on addressing challenges faced by those living with disabilities. 10 years after ratifying the Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities. That's the view of the Deputy Minister of Social Development, herself visually impaired, who is leading a 12-person delegation to this year's United Nations meeting of the states parties to the convention in New York. The conference seeks to address the question of full participation of persons with disabilities in the implementation of the convention, but Henrietta Bogopane-Zulu warns that there would be no welcoming party for those seeking to redefine the power dynamics that currently exist.
She believes South Africa is succeeding in elevating the voice of people living with disabilities, but cautions there is much work that still needs to be done.
We could do better, but what we can say is that with the establishment of the Planning Commission by President Zuma and the National Development Plan, we ensured that in the National Development Plan there are disability-specific information that is put, so that the envisaged 2030 South Africa must be a fully inclusive one.
The Deputy Minister pointed to the piloting of the Disability Inequality Index that will produce its first report by May next year, and highlights the importance of institutionalizing the right to self-representation.
Whenever you demand where power needs to be shared, there's no welcoming party. So people with disabilities need to understand that, is that nobody's going to just give you power on a silver platter. You have to fight for it. And that is why it's such a fight. But also, if all the time you have been seen as an object of pity, an object that where you need to be taken care of, and all of a sudden you say, look, I can take care of myself, it shifts the balances of power. So now people need to learn to relate to you in an affirming and in a, an equitable, like, I've got the power too. But over the years you were told, you were treated like a child, you're going to sleep, you're going to do this, you're going to do that, but now you're saying, look, I have the right to determine when I'm going to sleep, I have the right to determine what I want to eat. The power relations change, and that is what is so difficult.
Part of her delegation is this man from KwaZulu-Natal, who suffers from an unseen disability, a severe form of dyslexia that prevents him from being able to read and write.
It is an element where a person cannot read only their rights, because it goes through those difficulties where children are facing with literacy problems, to a point that in mainstream schools you'll find that there are children who are struggling to read and write. It is just that what we are ensuring that inclusive education should take part, and early diagnosis should be a part of the part where children will be identified at an early stage, which will simply elevate and assist them.
Gender Commissioner Mbuyisela Botha, who was shot in 1986, now suffers from hemiplegia that has left parts of his body paralyzed.
This old slogan, nothing about us without us, where their voice is not submerged, where, those that are able-bodied who not speak on behalf. And as a country, we come from a history where those that were marginalized, were oppressed, their voices were muted. So, and this, part of this conference, it gives an opportunity to show that in the forefront, those that are disabled, their voice matters.
The conference ends later Thursday. Bryce-Pease, SABC News, New York.